Did Star Wars Celebration give fans any reason to celebrate? Hello there, and welcome. Another year, another Star Wars Celebration that's come and gone. But did it really give fans anything to celebrate? In today's video, I'm going to go over some of the announcements made at celebrations and why I, and let's be honest, many other Star Wars fans, just feel like nothing's truly changing at Lucasfilm. It seems that the cinematic drought that has taken place for Star Wars over the last few years is finally set to end, as the Mandalorian and Grogu movie will blast into theaters in 2026, and fans in attendance were treated to some clips from the upcoming project. But after the disastrous Season 3 of The Mandalorian show, the question on everyone's mind is, can they pull The Mandalorian back from the brink? Season 3 was an absolute mess from a writing perspective that absolutely destroyed the goodwill many fans had for the series. And don't get me wrong, casual audiences will get into the cinema just to see Grogu. That kind of buying power has already been established for the infamously cute puppet. But will it be enough to provide Lucasfilm with a success story? And how far can Lucasfilm really take this lone bounty hunter trying to be a father to an orphan alien when they insist on making him the center of their new cinematic universe? Because that was the real charm provided by the Mandalorian series. It was absolutely standalone when it started, but the further it continues, the more interconnected it gets, the closer it's forced to get to the divisive sequel trilogy, and I honestly think that spells disaster. Especially as Lucasfilm seems intent on using it to try and explain and expand upon the sequel trilogy, rather than allow it to truly be its own thing. In more movie news, Shawn Levy's Star Wars movie was finally given a name, and a big star attached in Ryan Gosling for a movie set after the rise of Skywalker and titled Star Wars Starfighter. It's a bold move that promises a new timeline, a new story, an all-new cast to take audiences into a bold new era for Star Wars. But the question on everyone's mind right now is, who cares? Every single celebration has featured a director stepping onto the stage, maybe even with an actor in tow, touting their new Star Wars movie that's going to start production within the year and that they can't wait to bring to the big screen. And so far, nothing has come of any of them. Do you remember Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie? How about Benioff and Weiss's Star Wars project that hasn't had any word since Game of Thrones crashed and burned around their heads? Or maybe Kevin Feige's Star Wars film? Simon Kinberg's new trilogy? I know, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's new Rey movie that will take Rey's new Jedi Order into uncharted territories. Or maybe James Mangold's Tale of the Jedi's Formation. But wait, what about Rian Johnson's mythical trilogy that is still absolutely happening if anyone asks Lucasfilm employees about it? Don't worry, Taika Waititi's film is definitely still coming as soon as he decides he's ready. Kathleen Kennedy, and by extension Lucasfilm, have gotten so comfortable announcing new projects and then quietly shelving them that fans, myself included, just don't believe them anymore. We've been burned so many times on these kinds of announcements that I'll believe Starfighter's coming out when I'm seated in the cinema, not before. And on that, just admit when something isn't going to happen. Rian Johnson will never touch another Star Wars movie ever again, because Lucasfilm, whether they'll admit it in public or not, know that The Last Jedi was a PR disaster that split the fan base right down the middle. And so anything else that man does in the Star Wars space would be equally as polarizing, if not more so. Also, I think it's important to talk about something that's really been bothering me about these announcements over the years. See, Lucasfilm will announce a new movie and then state who's going to direct it. But when fans question their timelines, we're told that the directors are busy and that they'll get to the Star Wars movie when their schedule allows. I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. For one, Star Wars used to be a franchise that people would give their right arm to be a part of. They'd drop everything and anything just to get the opportunity to be part of that creative process. That is what Disney and Lucasfilm have done. They've taken a $4 billion IP, a premier franchise that lasted decades, and turned it into something that people might get to if they have the time. That is insane. And if you want to fix that, then stop chasing random big-name directors who don't give a damn. Find the directors who are still willing to treat Star Wars as the cinematic icon it once was. The people who are still going to drop everything to be a part of it. In other words, find the people who care. The people who love Star Wars. The people who are fans and want nothing more than to add to George Lucas's legacy, not take away from it. Then there were the announcements of the various animated projects, with the one that everyone is most excited for being the new Darth Maul series. Now please, don't get me wrong, any project that gives Sam Witwer more work is fine by me, and the Maul series certainly sounds interesting. But I've got to ask the obvious question here. Haven't we seen enough of Maul? His run in the Clone Wars and Rebels was phenomenal, and provided an incredible journey for this character that culminated in a poignant and beautiful death at the hands of his greatest enemy, Obi-Wan Kenobi. How much more is there to explore with this guy? But it's endemic of a problem facing Star Wars and pretty much every project they've been putting to screen in recent years. A problem prevalent with their announcement about Ahsoka's second season and the return of Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. See, Star Wars, like the MCU, is focusing everything they have on nostalgia. They will keep bringing back old characters in everything they possibly can, in the vain hope of getting fans to watch their poorly written content. And as much as I love characters like Maul and Admiral Akbar, and as much as I love Hayden Christensen and want him to keep getting the praise he rightfully deserves, bringing them all back in a cheap attempt at a nostalgia-fueled cash grab just isn't going to work anymore. Star Wars fans have seen it too many times to fall for it again. If you're not going to bother putting the effort in to provide the characters and the audience with a well-written story, then just let the characters be, instead of dragging their reputations and completed character arcs through the mud. And finally, the most damning thing to come out of this year's Star Wars celebration was more a lack of an announcement than an actual reveal. See, once again, Star Wars fans got their hopes up that Kathleen Kennedy would finally be stepping down and stopping any further damage to the brand that used to be quite something. But she just keeps hanging on like a bad penny that you just can't get rid of. Always there, always making your day slightly worse than it needs to be. Kathleen Kennedy has made bad decision after bad decision, focusing on identity politics in Star Wars to the detriment of consistent, logical storytelling and creativity. How she has managed to avoid being fired should be studied, because it is a truly impressive feat after so many missteps. Greenlighting a sequel trilogy that had no plan and made less money with each film, making a Han Solo prequel that actually lost Lucasfilm money, creating The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, two series with some of the worst viewership ratings for a Star Wars project ever. Star Wars merchandise doesn't sell, no one watches the series that Lucasfilm puts out, and damn near every fan is calling for Kathleen Kennedy's head. Any other studio exec would have been fired for any one of these major financial disasters. But not Kathleen. I swear she must have some incredible dirt on the execs at Disney. It's the only explanation for how she's been clinging on to her job. Or the investors and execs genuinely think she's doing a stellar job. Which is a somewhat scarier thought in of itself, isn't it? I don't think Kathleen Kennedy will ever be fired by Disney. Not at this point. They seem far too committed. And likewise, I don't think Kennedy ever voluntarily quits. That'd be tantamount to admitting the fans were right in wanting her gone. I mean, especially if her replacement ends up doing a good job with the IP and actually makes it profitable again. But until Kennedy leaves, most fans aren't coming back. Lucasfilm needs new leadership that can leave behind the stain the current structures have left on this once great franchise, so it can actually move forward and allow the fan base to come together one more time. So, did Star Wars Celebration really give us anything to celebrate? Well, that depends. If you're a die-hard fan who's willing to hold out hope, maybe there's something in the pipeline worth looking forward to. But for many of us, it feels like Lucasfilm is stuck in the past, constantly hitting the same nostalgia buttons and announcing projects that may never happen. Until we see real change, new voices, new stories, and actual follow-through, it's hard to get excited. And honestly, that's the saddest part. Because we want to celebrate Star Wars. We just need a reason to. Thanks for watching, guys. Apologies if I sound a little bit terrible, let's be honest. I am a bit under the weather, so hopefully the next video that'll be fine, but and hopefully it wasn't actually too distracting in this one, to be honest. But I don't know, man, I just wish Star Wars would get its act together, you know? I wish I could look at what was announced on Celebration and be so excited the way I was 10 years ago, really. Not that Celebration was happening 10 years ago, but, you know, the point's still the same.